Moses Kajwang, who should be joining us not too long from now as we carry on. But we start off anyhow. And the Standard, radical plans for teachers and parents. Now, the state proposes drastic measures to raise school enrollment, curb arbitrary fee incitement, give more incentives to parents and teachers, and support for private schools in slums. Now, Betty, I'll start with you on this one. And the government definitely trying to push to ensure that a basic constitutional right for every child is enjoyed or privileged, and that is that of education. But of course, there are always some challenges that have been there, which the state is trying to overcome.
Yeah, I think this is exciting for me to read today. And I think it's a conversation that is actually long overdue, right? If we recall last year, the number of primary school girls who got pregnant and were doing their KCSE either from a maternity ward or, sitting behind the desk but very, very heavy was actually a point to worry. And for me, I wasn't surprised when we had the CS for Education, Ambassador Amina Mohammed, saying that they need to look for over 130,000, kids who got lost between, at finishing class 8 and transitioning into high school. And believe me, Michael, for me, the minimum level of education that any Kenyan child should have should be KCSE, secondary education. But we're losing so many, from class 6, 7, 8, especially the girls. So this radical plan for me that targets both teachers and parents, to me, it's very, very welcome. However, they need to go even deeper and look at what is it that is causing our kids not to progress and stay in school in the first place, all right? Then they need to look at what is it that is causing a huge number not to transition from primary to secondary. And for me, right there, immediately, what I would expect the ministry to do beyond what we read today is, can they just remove anything that is called a school fees and just let kids go to Form 1, all right, and control what the schools require, because that list, I just paid fees for one who was going to Form 1 just the other day. It was amazingly expensive, and I'm talking about a public school. The list was so long of things that if you look at it, you wonder, of what value is this thing that you're buying?
And of course, the question of affordability.
Affordability, And then sometimes they say that you only have to buy your uniform from place X. Right there, there's a problem. What if the shirt is white and this girl or boy had a shirt from the previous school that is still in good shape and it is white? What's the problem with that? So these are the things that are holding kids from transitioning while they have that admission, the invitation letter to go to school X. They are sitting at home with their parents not knowing exactly what to do
and how to go about
it. And another thing that we need to now be real with ourselves. We must speak to our kids about sexuality education. Boys and girls need to be told and need to be taught and need to be mentored and supported to know about the changes in their bodies, to know about if you do this, this is the potential outcome, and once this happens, this will happen, and this will happen, and this will happen. That is one topic that we as adults, as parents, fear, to talk about, and it is actually the greatest contributor of the situation that we are seeing within the education sector. As you correctly say, education is a fundamental right to all children, in this country. And the fact that it is a right also means that these kids have a right to quality education, not just education.
All right, and this sessional paper developed by the Ministry of Education is looking to address some of those things that you've highlighted, one of them being quality, service delivery, and teacher development at all learning levels. Karanja Kabage, the state of our education is definitely wanting. There are many areas that need to be fixed, but there are those who feel sometimes that the ministry is flip-flopping. One time we're going this way, the other time we're going the other way. Remember, we had the curriculum that was being changed, then at some point it was stalled, then again we are changing. But education, of course, being a very critical part of our development.
Well, thank you, Mike. I think I couldn't agree with you more, and my dear sister here. To me, I classify education as from cradle to death. It is so important that even before you are born, there should be plans for your education, because it's the single most important equalizer, universally. And therefore, matters education, it is not a business of fly by night, a flash on the pan. It's a serious strategic component of our lives. And therefore, when it is a question of education, we should have unison in saying, when it is a matter of education, then we are all together. I'll give you a number of examples. When you go to some rural areas and you look at the classroom, standard 1, you find about 100 students in a school. 100 students in a classroom. Now, it is at that very young age that the child will be molded to something. But I can tell you, maybe 20% of that will receive the attention that they deserve.
That they require.
So we begin there. Classrooms. What is the maximum we can allow a classroom to have?
And especially the teacher-student ratio.
That is so important. Not only the student-teacher ratio, the classroom itself. How many students should be in that class? That's the first thing. Because the span of attention of a student and the teacher is also determined by the number. Because if you move from standard 1 to standard 2, and the fundamentals have not been instilled in you, that deficiency will continue reflecting as you go on, even as you go to standard 8, you go to Form 1, you even go to the university. So it is at the cradle. That's why I said it's a matter of cradle to death.
Right.
So at that beginning stage, it is important that the nation must ask itself, what sort of investments are we going to make? That's the first thing. The second thing is education must be continuous. This issue of strikes must be a thing of the past. Because I'll tell you what, when you have a gap in terms of a month, 2 months, or 3 months in a year, where there was no formal running, to make up for that gap, you require private teaching. You require private coaching. That's an expense parents can't afford. So if we are going to say that the exam is the same in the country, countrywide, then how many things are the same?
Countrywide, and also making sure that they're all at the same level.
Precisely.
Right.
This is so important because when you are now going to sit down for an examination, nobody knows whether you went to a classroom where there were 25 kids or there were 100 kids. No. And you'll be judged accordingly. Somebody will say, this child is dumb, or this person is doing very well. But the fundamentals of how you do well begins from how you are initiated into education. And therefore, we must have, collectively as a nation, a responsibility of saying, we are going to invest in education because that is the future
of this country.
Yes.
Absolutely. And they say that those who do not invest in their children do not invest in a future. So as Kenya, we need to get our education system right and ensure that our children do get the best education.